All right, so today we're going to be doing an intro into the agent to broker plan. It's our formal, I guess, I don't know if you call it formal education. That's our probably best tool for getting agents to understand how to run and operate a brokerage. It's a plan for agents to, learn all of the back end stuff because there's a lot of back end stuff that goes on for a brokerage. It's not very complicated. It's fairly easy to understand, but it's just something that people aren't used to. So we've got 12 classes that we'll do. We'll go through all 12. And we'll probably have more than 12 as new things come about, and we'll kind of redo some things and update some classes too. There'll be some different ones for different states as well. But basically, this is the intro to the agent to broker plan classes that we have. And this way, you're able to learn more about what you're going to get into as a broker and how to run a brokerage. So let's go ahead and get started. I know we'll have some people tap in from time to time, so I'll let them into the meeting as they come in. Well, that's not right. All right, so who we are. So a lot of people don't know this, but our purpose is to empower entrepreneurs with opportunities and tools to enrich their lives. That's our purpose. Our mission, which is totally different, is to become the #1 difference maker in the industry. These are two important aspects that we came up with a long time ago, and I'm probably the worst person at, I guess, getting this information out there consistently all the time, especially to new agents. But I thought I would cover it here in the agent to broker plan. So our purpose is to empower entrepreneurs with opportunities and tools to enrich their lives. We'll just kind of dig into that a little bit. And basically, when you look at what eAgent is, we're a model for the entrepreneur agent. Originally, that's what the E and eAgent stood for, was the entrepreneur agent. And the more we got into it, the more we started seeing it not really isn't just for entrepreneurs, because there's people out there that are more employee minded and want that security, and they're not going to be out there running a business. They're more self-employed, independent contractors as agents. And we want to make sure that they get opportunities too. And the E really stands for empowered agent when it comes to inside eAgent, what we intend to do. And it's to empower entrepreneurs with opportunities, which means the agent to broker plan, which this is the only plan, or we're the only brand that I'm aware of, and I've looked a lot for helping agents who want to open up their own office learn how to do so within their own brokerage, and their broker wants them to do it. So I know that sounds crazy, but when you're looking at a brokerage, all other brokerages, they want to kind of protect their agents as like assets that are making them money, and kind of not keep them down, but just kind of keep them in place more so. And we want to make sure that those opportunities and tools we provide all agents, whether they want to stay as just a regular agent, or they want to get their broker's license and open up their own brokerage. So we want to make sure those opportunities are for everybody. And then also the tools are our technology, our integrations, our culture, everything to enrich their lives, not just personally, professionally, but also personally. So that's a really big point to make as far as who we are and our purpose. Our mission to become the #1 difference maker in the industry. And that really what it boils down to. There's actually a book called The Difference Maker by John Maxwell. And I really enjoyed that book several years ago, probably 15 years ago. And it's probably one of the top 10 books I've read in a long time. And it really just discusses on how to make a difference with people. And when you do, you end up creating a bond or relationship that can last a lot longer than more surface-oriented relationships as you see like in social media these days. So if you're trying to, be a difference maker, it's really to provide value to someone else as in your relationship, whether it just be a friend, whether it be a client or a customer, whether it be a coworker in your brokerage, your broker relationship, anything like that. It's really just to be a difference maker in the industry. And as that's on a personal level, that's on a an individual level. But as eAgent, as our mission, we want to be the #1 difference maker in the industry, not just in our market, not just in our region. I really want to be that one brand that stands out as a difference maker to all the agents, the brokers, regionals that no other brand has as well, and any other franchisees and brands in our market. So those are the two things that I want to make sure that we kind of cover. So a lot of people don't know that, and this video will kind of be made public. So we want to make sure that everybody understands those two aspects. So I will say too, the rest of our Agent to Broker plan classes are they're available, but only available to agents that are in the Agent to Broker plan. It's not just for anybody anywhere. So we just want to make sure that everybody gets the right information. And two, when you watch one of these videos, you may want to do it with your broker, so then they can kind of give you some feedback and answer questions along the way too. So what is the Agent Broker Plan? So it's your plan to learn how to run and operate a successful real estate brokerage before you actually open one. It's your simulator to help you hit the ground running instead of learning as you go in an isolated environment. The reason why I say it this way is because I did it this way. I went out on my own in the end of 2004, early 2005. I can't remember which one it was. And it was very isolating. There was nobody to help you. There weren't any books. There still aren't any books. I think that when I went to Amazon, there was about 6 books, and they were all dated or just kind of had a very skewed version of what a brokerage was. I didn't get any help out of it. I guess probably if somebody was brand new and just didn't have any clue, they'd probably get some information out of those books. But when I went to Amazon, there was only 6 total. When you look at thousands when it comes to building teams, lead generation, agents, all that kind of stuff. But there's no really actual education when it comes to running and operating a brokerage. And the reason why is that no broker wants you to do this. So no one's putting it out. There's no upside to it. Franchises don't put it out because they go out and switch the badge on an existing successful brokerage. So what they do is they go into a market, they see an independent brokerage that has 20, 30, 50, 300 agents, whatever it is. They're already successful, and they sell them on, hey, if you would be more successful if you were associated with our brand, it's going to do X for you, all that kind of thing. And they sell you on rebadging an existing successful brokerage. They don't teach you how to start and operate and build a brokerage from scratch. There isn't anything. So we decided to do this, and this is basically our niche in the market. We want to make sure that all agents who want to open their brokerage can do so, but do it in a successful way with the support, the branding, marketing, technology, education, all that kind of stuff, to help support them before and after. So that's basically the Agent to Broker plan. So how can you start the process? So starting the process is really kind of unique. So it's really up to your broker to set the parameters on how they will assist you during this journey. And they will be the one you need to sit down with to develop a plan of action and establish your level of commitment. So what this boils down to is everybody's going to be, taking a little longer, maybe a little shorter. They have different, attention spans, all these kind of things. So what you want to do is first sit down with your broker and say, look, hey, I want to open my office, one day in the future. How can we start the Agent to Broker plan? How do I get with you to start this? And how can you help me, do this? Is this once a week? Is this once a month? All those kind of things. We are basically giving your broker the ability to help you open your own brokerage. And that sounds crazy. It seems like they wouldn't want to, but they actually do, because we have an incentive for them to get to a regional partner role. And if they want to get to a regional partner role, they need to assist agents opening up their own brokerage and essentially leaving them. So I know it sounds crazy, and the broker will want to bring you on, teach you what they know, and then they will help you leave them. And if you do it right with your broker, they will pay for your franchise for you. I know they're going to pay to have you leave them. I know it sounds crazy, but they will. So, which I mean, it's totally the opposite of what our industry, has put out, and we want to make sure to change that. And this is one of the things that we're doing, and they want to, and they want to see you succeed. So it only helps them do so. Anybody have any questions in the meantime before we get to any of the meat and potatoes? Well, actually, Yari, since you're on, can you give kind of a rough idea of like what your journey has been so in the last year and a half since you've been with us?
My journey, it's been crazy. It's a lot of learning, but also it's a lot of mindset changing too. And then, in our conversation yesterday, I still find myself thinking old school or seeing things the old school way, and I catch myself going like, smacking myself in the hand, like, no, it's let's do it the eAgent way. Let's do it right. But I think it's been great. And I think in the year and a half that I've been here, I learned more about brokerage, business, mindset, health, everything. I mean, a little bit of everything more here than I have probably in my whole, 7 years of real estate, if that makes sense. Because nobody before, like Tracy said, it's all about the support, and then just feeling that you have that support and that you can ask any question, regardless of how silly you think the question is. If it feels good to not be dismissed, and then to be taught, and then to be able to have a successful brokerage, whether it's me by myself or whether it's hiring people. I want to make sure that this business thrives, so it's been crazy, but I'm most grateful for it, for sure.
Good. I know there's a lot more to come. I know we've gotten, in your year and a half, you're now got your own franchise, your own eAgent United. So it's been a really, pleasure to see you open that and hire agents and just the whole 9 yards. I mean, it's just really been, I think one of those unexpected pleasures that I wasn't expecting. So it's been just really cool to watch, and it's always nice to see people succeed. And when you have the right culture, that's what you want. That's ultimately what we're all wanting, for everyone to succeed. All right, so let's go into what we're going to be covering today in all the classes. So one of them is going to be your state compliance. Another is going to be your office policies and procedures. We're going to go through, well, it's not going to be branding guidelines. It's going to be branding guidelines. I just realized that's a typo. Office culture and events, story brand marketing. If no one has ever heard of story brand, it's going to be a really cool thing. Lead generation, personal development and leadership, office decor and build out, brokerment and accounting. Brokerment is going to be our office management software when it comes to paying out and kind of working with QuickBooks and all that kind of stuff. Tax strategy with a CMA, a CPA, our compensation plans when it comes to agents, and then the recruiting best practices. That's what we're going to talk about today. Those are our 12 classes that we cover in the agent to broker classes. We'll have more, but those are the 12 that we have so far. So let's look at the first one. So state compliance. Well, where do you start with state compliance? It's like, okay, so one of the things that I've realized with our state, which is Mississippi, I know we're in other states too, but compliance, each state has their own kind of rules and regulation when it boils down to real estate brokerages and agents and what they can do and can't do with the public and, with clients over customers and all that kind of stuff. But our state, for some reason, has a unique way of seeing the brokerage as a business. And the way it was explained to me was that they see it as more of like an auto dealership, and an auto dealership with salespeople. And the salespeople, the way they look at marketing and advertising is if the sales, let's say if you buy a truck or a car at, XYZ auto dealership, well, when you go to tell someone else and they ask you, where'd you buy that vehicle? You're going to say XYZ auto dealership. But that's not kind of how real estate works. And for some reason, they keep seeing it this way. But no one asks you like what type of house you have. Even if you've got a brand new house and they know the builder, they're not going to say, well, who built the house? It's just not a conversation that comes up. And even if they do, they're not going to talk about the brokerage. They're going to talk about who sold them the relationship they had, which was the agent. So when it comes to their advertising and regulations, it's kind of weird the way they see things. So you almost have to put on a different hat when you're dealing with the Mississippi State Real Estate Commission. It's just a bit odd. And I don't know how long that's going to last. Maybe through the next few years, somebody will retire and they'll have kind of a shakeup and do different things. But I know each state's going to be a little different on when it comes to these things. But one of the things we wanted to talk about was transaction boards. And I think this is a good thing to talk about really in any state, it doesn't matter. But you don't want to have a board up, a whiteboard or a chalkboard up in your office. And because we're going to be talking about all this stuff we're going to talk about today is from the broker's point of view, owning a brokerage, how that looks. It's not going to be really from an agent's point of view. So kind of put that hat on when you're thinking about all this. So the transaction board is you don't want to have all the transactions up of what is closed, what the purchase price is, who the client's name is, all that kind of stuff. You don't want to have a lot of that pertinent information up for display in your office. And the reason for it is, let's say the deal falls through and somebody else in the office that wasn't, part of that deal now sees it was, under contract for $344,000. Well, now they know that deal now is back on the market. Well, now they know that the list was set 344 when the list price was maybe 359. So you don't want to have that information showing because it creates a dual agency conflict in your brokerage. So that's why I would say transaction boards. That's why I have that up here. That's just one of the things we'll go through in the overall video when it comes to state compliance. Now, this specific video is for Mississippi. We'll have different videos for different states, but I'm talking about this video specifically for Mississippi. But transaction boards are a no-no, especially for certain information. And then broker is responsible for supervision and education. So this is one of the things that the state is telling me. So these, I would say MLM style brokerages or large brokerages where they have one broker for the state. So when you see that our state is wanting to have the broker to be responsible for supervision and education. So how is one broker for the state going to be in charge and responsible for supervision and education? Extremely hard to do so. And they were telling me that it's probably not going to be too long before that model, the way it is going to have to go away in our state because of this issue. So that's one of the reasons why we didn't go with an MLM version of the way we build out, the way our incentives are for our brand. We didn't take the MLM route for different reasons, but that was definitely one of them. Another thing we're going to talk about is compliance person for larger offices. So when you get your office to be 30, 40, 50, 100 agents, you're going to need a designated compliance person because the way the state looks at it is you as a broker can't handle all the stuff you're doing, especially if you're doing your own production, and also do the compliance for all these transactions too. So you're going to have a designated compliance person, or at least a person that can oversee it, or several people can oversee it. Now, if you have certain teams in your office, maybe that team leader is going to be over compliance for their team. So that kind of offsets a little bit. Another thing we're talking about is advertising guidelines. We just talked about that a little bit before. But social media posts and ads, that's something else we go over. DBAs and nicknames. The DBAs, which is I find interesting too. A lot of people maybe not know this, but if you are, let's say everybody knows you as Jim, let's say Jim Johnson, and your actual name is James Johnson on your license, you have to market yourself as James Johnson unless you file for a nickname in MREC for Jim to be put on your license. So then you can use Jim Johnson. Same thing for a DBA for your brokerage. So this office that I'm located in right now, the LLC name is Nexus Realty LLC, but the DBA is eAgent Nexus. So you have to file a DBA with the state and also the state commission to get your DBA, so then you can mark it as a franchise, which is going to be, let's say, eAgent, whatever you want to call your office. So signage requirements. For this state, for Mississippi, they'll have really it's two main ones. If you put the office on your signage, if you put the office name, it must be accompanied by the office phone number, and then the office phone number can't be any the agent's phone number can't be larger than the office number, and the agent's name can't be larger than the smallest part of the office name. So if you have let's say if ours is eAgent Nexus and the Nexus is the smallest font, well, the agent's name can't be larger than the smallest font, which is Nexus. So that's another reason why our fonts are a certain size. So the size of the names on our signs in the yard are a certain size where you can read them. So that's the reason why we have a larger sub names for our office name on our branding as far as eAgent and then the DBA. Where this is Nexus, we've got Gulf Coast, we've got United, a lot of different offices. So you'll see that from time to time, but you want the name to be shorter as possible for that reason. Exceptions to the rule. So there's going to be some exceptions to the rule when it comes to MREC's advertising rules. And that's going to be like promotional items, more or less. Let's say pins, like writing pins, stickers or decals on your car, shirts with the logos on them, all those kind of promotional items. They don't necessarily have to have the phone number. So that's kind of the idea behind this. There are some exceptions to the rule, and promotional items are one of those. We'll go through those too in that video. State required documents, every state's got their own requirements. I know probably later this year, there's going to be some different required documents, and some documents are going to change, but we also go over the state required documents, what those look like, how to keep in compliance from that standpoint too. Another part is handling earnest money. A lot of people don't know how to handle earnest money, or they don't handle earnest money the wrong way once. And there have been times where people have mishandled earnest money and have gone to jail over it from the state. So earnest money handling is a very important topic. It must be in a non-interest bearing account. And it's got to be handled correctly with a ledger and these kind of things. It's not a big deal, but you just have to know these things when you're handling earnest money. Wholesaling do's and don'ts. This is something else we go over. There are certain language when you're working with wholesalers, or if you're a broker that does wholesaling, to put in the language in your contracts. That's some of the things that we talk about in creative real estate investing too, which is a whole another couple of videos we've done in the past. And you just have to make sure that the language is correct in the listing agreement and also in the contracts. And then also the last thing I want to talk about is the hiring agents with background checks. Now, every state's going to do kind of their background check for fingerprinting and all those kind of things. But you probably don't know what their requirements are for giving someone a license, regardless of what their background brings up. Let's say that they're a felon. Well, in certain states, you can be a felon and still get your license. But I think a lot of brokers, they assume if they pass the background check for the state, they're okay to hire for their office. And that is nowhere near true. So my interpretation, once I found this out, I was like, we should be doing background checks on every agent that comes in this office, because we need to know who we're working with. And then also there's a lot of people that are just doing bad things, and you need to know about it. So just definitely do a background check. And even also a credit check is not bad either, because let's say if you're going to give them a monthly invoice and you see tons of credit check, issues that they have a really low credit score and they're just not paying their bills, well, they're probably not going to pay yours either. So the more you can do that, the better. And you can just put that on your policies and procedures or an application to give you the ability to run a background check and a credit check on them before you hire them. Anybody have any questions on state compliance? I know this one's more about Mississippi, but overall, each state will have its own kind of compliance and will have its own video as well. But that's one of the things we cover in our classes is state compliance. All right, so let's get to number one. Number two is office policies and procedures. So We do give a starter template for your policies and procedures. It's 22, 24 pages long, something like that. It was put together by several different offices. It's not really a required document from eAgent Corporate as a franchisor to a franchisee. We don't give you any kind of documents to help you run your brokerage because each brokerage can be run, differently, definitely within each state. So it's really hard to come up with specific documents when it comes to these things. But we do kind of give you templates to work from. Then you change them based on your state, the way you want to run your office, maybe different rules within your realtor association locally or your state. So you have to take those and then kind of tweak them to make them your own. I wouldn't leave them the way they are. I would just kind of run through them and make sure, and then you can add to some certain stuff. You can take away certain stuff, however you want to do it. But basically, you've got a starter template to work from to go, oh, okay, I didn't think about this. I didn't think about that. Maybe, I need to add this because of our, local county does this. So those are the kind of things you got to work with is when it comes to policies, procedures, to start them. And then dealing with independent contractor agreements, getting W-9 from your agents, all those kind of things, handling conflicts within your office is some of the stuff we talk about in policy procedures. What your E&O insurance covers, whether you provide that as part of a benefit for all your agents or they provide it, what the coverage needs to be, if there's any, property management or any other kind of dealings, or if they're buying and selling their own properties, that's different E&O insurance coverage. Another thing is alcohol in the office. I speak from experience. Having alcohol in the office, didn't think it was a big deal, but apparently it's a big deal. So when things go off the rails, it's like, okay, no alcohol in the office. Just somebody had to ruin it for everybody. But in a general practice, it's probably not a good idea to have alcohol in the office. And the reason for it is that you're normally going to have contracts being signed or something like that. And you just don't want that in the office for that to be an issue later on, saying that they were, somebody was drinking alcohol or they were offered alcohol during signing of a contract. You definitely don't want that to come back on you later on. Now it's probably okay to do it like at events or something like that, for certain things that are happening in the office, or you go out of town or go to an event, for all your agents, probably not an issue there. But basically, as a general rule, I probably wouldn't have alcohol in the office. Office cleanliness. I think when a lot of times we have brokerages, not everybody has a designated office, but if you're going to have somebody come in and they're just going to be staying there for a few hours, just use kind of a day desk, well, they need to clean up after them. If they're going to have lunch in the office, clean up after them. If they're going to be like kind of some, weird smelling stuff that they cooked for lunch or stuff, take it out with the trash, those kind of things. Just be real respectful of the people that you surround yourself with, your office, and also the broker. I mean, they have to come behind you and clean up after you, and they don't want to do that. Identity theft with clients. So a lot of times we have clients' information, they tell us a lot of stuff. We don't want to make sure that, we want to make sure that we don't have any identity theft issues. We don't have, just really anything left around the office. That's another reason why I kind of don't like paper files being in the office, because anybody can access them. You're supposed to have filing cabinets in your office according to Mississippi or the state. But their backup can be done through online, which we do, which is DocuSign rooms, and they're okay with that, especially after Hurricane Katrina, where everyone's offices and their files went bye-bye. So they were all destroyed, wet, whatever it was, and they realized that, hey, especially in certain areas or fire, those kind of things, you don't want to have your primary backup of files being paper. You want your primary backup being online, digitally safe and secure. And then if you want a secondary backup, we'll put it on a thumb drive and have it at your house or have it in a drawer somewhere. And then if you want a third backup, have it as a file in every 2 or 3 years or whatever your state compliance says, delete or destroy those documents and then kind of move on from there. But backup files are very important and they're part of the state's compliance. Auto insurance coverage is another one for your agents. So if they're driving around with people in their car, those kind of things, you want to make sure that if they're doing that they have you as a rider, as additionally insured on their coverage. It doesn't cost anything. All you're basically doing is just telling them to, hey, give your auto insurance carrier this information, and then they'll add you to the policy. Now, what I've found is if they change from, let's say, Liberty Mutual to Allstate, well, they're probably not going to remember to add you as additionally insured again. So it's just one of those things to just kind of keep a reminder, say once a year or something like that, at a certain office event, or you're getting with them for annual like checkup or goals or something like that, just, state it under the time. It's not a bad idea or bad practice to just keep on top of. Personal transactions. This is something else for policies and procedures. Well, how do you handle personal transactions? Not you, but the agents. How do they handle personal transactions? Is it going to be a different commission plan? Are they going to say, well, you know what? I took the listing, but I only took the listing for, since it's mine, I only took it for $50. So the brokerage split is going to be, an 80-20 split of $50. Is that fair? I don't know. Depends on you and your process, your policies. What does that look like? If you don't have these policies in place, people will test the fences, and then you'll find out later, well, your commission split of 20% that you thought you were going to get is now $10. So just make sure that you have this in writing and they sign off on it when it comes to yearly policies and procedures. If you've updated them annually, or when they come on board, they need to read them and sign them. So the next thing is transaction process or processes. So we use DocuSign Rooms. Not everybody does, but you definitely need to use DocuSign Rooms. And it's for the franchisee. The broker needs to be if someone uses a different system like Dotloop, or let's say SkySlope, or Zip Forms or Lone Wolf, one of those other options, all the broker still has to bring those transactions into DocuSign and close them out in DocuSign. We don't care if you want to use something else besides DocuSign, but all your transactions must be in DocuSign Rooms as part of a requirement as a franchisee, because that's the transaction management software that we prefer, and that's what we're going to be checking when it comes to royalties being paid, agents being paid on time, any kind of issues that comes along with that. All the transactions should be in DocuSign Rooms. Another thing is fair housing. One of the things that a lot of brokers don't realize they need to have is a fair housing poster in their office in a communal place. They just forget about it, or no one tells them. So that's one of the things you need to have, and it's easy to get. You can just print them off the internet, put it in a frame, and stick it up there. Not very hard to do, but you at least need to know about it. And then agency relationships. So your agents don't understand a lot of times that they're an agent of you and you're an agent of your client. That's how agency relationships work. They are not an agent of the client. They're an agent of you, and you're the agent of the client. So as long as they understand this relationship, they'll see it with a different point of view. I think that agents forget this over a period of time, and they just kind of do things on their own, not realizing that the broker really has the final say. They have the liability, they're responsible, all these kind of things. And as long as you keep on kind of track with certain agents, and you'll know who they are. I mean, they're normally the ones that are kind of doing things a little sloppier. They're doing things a little unorganized, and they'll forget, and they don't come to all the meetings and those kind of things. So those are the ones you gotta kind of stay on top of, or double check their DocuSign Rooms, double check their contracts, and then kind of bring them in, or kind of give them a little more, how would you say, a little more slapping on the wrist, I think, because and the longer you put it off, the more they'll run with it. So what you have to do is, when they start being a little unorganized, you've got to say, look, I'm not going to pay you on this until you get all your documents in. Once you get those documents in and they're done in the way that I prefer, then I'll pay you. And if they're wanting money, they'll get all their crap straight, and then they'll get it to you. And then probably they'll do it another time, and you'll remind them, like, hey, I'm on vacation. I'm out to eat with my spouse. I'm doing something else. I'll get to this tomorrow, because I could have gotten to it today if you would have had it would have been in the room organized like I want it. But if it's not going to be done like that, then I'll get to it on my timeline, not yours. So if you want to get paid more frequent and faster, well, just do it as the rule states, and then it makes everything a lot easier. And handling referrals. That's another thing that a lot of people don't realize. When you have co-op agreements in Mississippi, there's a co-op agreement that you have to file for in-state, or out-of-state referrals. If they're in-state, you don't need one. But how do you handle referrals in the office? How do you handle referrals from another office, out of state, in-state? Let's say if you're handling a referral from your own office. Let's say that you're going to have leads coming into your brokerage, and now your brokerage is going to give out referrals or leads to someone else. Is that a percentage? Who knows? Is it free? Depends on the lead source. Maybe it's a lead source you're not having to pay for. So you're just kind of giving that, that savings onto them. And they're like, hey, if you can handle this lead, great. If you can't, we'll pass it on to somebody else. But handling referrals from the office leads or from some other source, make sure you have that in your policies and procedures, because they understand, like, hey, when you get a referral, this is what we do. And when you get this kind of referral, this is what we do. When you get this kind of referral, this is what we do. So that's all in your office policies and procedures. The more that you can get people to, I guess, follow the policies that you have in your office, the smoother everything will be, and your life will go so much easier. And you won't have to be like banging your head against the wall because why are these people doing what I tell them to do? The more you just kind of get on them in the beginning, the better. Now, of course, everybody's going to be a little different, and you kind of got to hold their hands with mittens. Sometimes, it's kind of one of those kind of deals, but it's mainly trying to get them to do it your way over whatever way they were doing it at the last brokerage. Like, that's the way they did it. We do it a different way here. And the more you do it this way, the faster you'll get paid and everything will be smooth. So not that you have to do everything differently, but it's a really great way for them to see that this is the way we do it here. And this is how you see how we do it in our policies and procedures. So a lot of times people will just kind of just breeze through, and you can, the ones, if you send them the policies and procedures in DocuSign and you just sent it to them and 3 minutes later you get it signed back, you know that they haven't read a thing. So you're going to have issues down the road. But if they take 2 or 3 days, 5 days, a week to sign it and they give it back to you, they probably have read it. So just kind of keep that in mind. Any questions on the policies and procedures?
All good.
All right. So story brand marketing. I know this is a big, big, big book. One of the 3 books that we use in our branding guidelines. If you haven't read this book, I wouldn't even say you have to. I would say it's a must read if you want to succeed in real estate. And this doesn't make any sense because this is not a real estate book, but this one, you're not even trying to build a brand. What you're trying to do is understand the right way to do marketing and the wrong way of doing marketing. This is the top 3 books I've ever read as far as business goes. Top 3 business books. One of the top 3. Changed the way I saw how not only to do marketing, but how to handle yourself with other people. So it really teaches you how to be the guide, not the hero. So when you look at like a movie, you want to be Yoda, not Skywalker. That's kind of the idea. You want to be the guide in their story. So when you have a client come on board, you want to be the guide and let them be Luke Skywalker in their story. Because if you're Luke Skywalker in their story, then they have no room to be Luke Skywalker. And then they choose to go somewhere else to have somebody else guide them in their story. That makes sense. So that's what you want to be. Now, when you want to flip this on its head, you're going to be the broker, you want to be the Yoda, you want to be the guide, and the agents are the hero in your office. So you want to be the guide and let the agents be the hero in their story. The only way to do this is to find out what story they're trying to live out. What are their goals? What are their plans? What are they trying to accomplish? And you be the guide in their story. How to do this is going through a 7-part framework. And you'll go through the 7-part framework, but it basically teaches you how to do the marketing the right way and the wrong way. And it's what I used to term tasteful over tacky. You would have this, you ever see these brokerages or agents, I did 17 million this month, I'm so great, look at me, all this kind of stuff, self-promotion. That is tacky. That is being the hero. And you don't leave any room for the client or the other person to be the hero. That's the problem with it. And this book spells it out to a T. I always didn't like when I saw that marketing, but I just didn't know why I didn't like it. And I used to call it, stop being tacky and be tasteful in your marketing. But once I read this book, I was like, that's exactly what I felt. I just didn't know how to put it into words. And there's an audio with this book. We've got a video series with this book that will take you through the whole manual if you want to go through that. It's phenomenal. It changes the way you look at all marketing. If you get anything out of this presentation today, read this book. You don't have to do anything in this presentation except for read that book, and you will be so much far beyond any other agent. So hands down, read the book, listen to it, however you want to do it. I've probably listened to it, probably 10 times now. I just got through listening to it last week. So it's definitely one to make sure. And if you're getting to be a broker, this is required. As a franchisor, we're requiring you to read the book. And not only that, but when you become a franchisee, you have 90 days to go through the Business Made Simple framework regarding this book. So you might as well go ahead and get it in and start participating and start working it, because by the time you get to be a franchisee or a broker, you already kind of have this a lot more down and be used to the way marketing should be done. So let's go through the 7-part framework. And this is how kind of a story unfolds, and this is how your marketing should unfold. So a character with a problem meets a guide who understands their fears and gives them a plan that calls them to action, which results in either success and an aspirational identity, or they become a failure and they don't get this. So it helps them avoid failure. That's generally the 7-part framework. That's the story unfolding everywhere at all times. When a client comes to you, they're wanting a house, they have a problem, they want to downsize, they want to upsize, they just were about to have a child, all these kind of things. They have fears, they have problems. They want you to be a guide. So a character, a client comes to you with a problem, who meets an agent who is acting as a guide now, who understands their fears and makes sure that they understand that, and then gives them a plan of action that calls them action, which results in their success buying the right home. Now the aspirational identity is a successful homeowner with a successful experience. They didn't get freaked out, all this kind of stuff. You end up getting a 5-star review, and then it helps them to avoid failure, which is buying the wrong house, having a horrible, interest rate, having the wrong insurance, all this kind of stuff. This is you. You are the guide, and you're helping them through their story. But if you don't understand this, you are doing it ass backwards. That's what happens. So read the book, go through the 7-part framework. We have all the video series. We also do a story brand marketing agent to broker video or class with a certified story brand guide that we work with. And we'll go through, it's about 2 hours. We're going through the 7-part framework as agents. It's amazing. But if it's almost like you can't watch the video without reading the book. So you read the book first, then go through the agent to broker class, which is about 2 hours. Then you can go through the video series, which is basically Don Miller, the author, going through this whole thing and really get into the meat of everything, and with a manual to write everything down in, and you're putting everything into perspective. It's absolutely amazing. But as you go through this, you'll want to get to their second book, which is Marketing Made Simple. And then there's a third book, Business Made Simple. But their business online course, or several courses online, their platform is called Business Made Simple. You can go to businessmadesimple.com. It's $275 a year. And as a franchisee, when you become a franchisee, if you will buy the $275 platform with all the courses, we will reimburse you the $275. So it's free. You just got to go out and do it. But you'll change everything you want to know about marketing and how it looks, how it's presented, by just reading or listening to this book. You'll get it immediately. It's not hard to understand. It's very easy to understand. And I know Yari had told me she works with an insurance provider here locally that he was halfway through the book and then pulled all his billboards because he realized that the marketing, the message was wrong. And he just immediately just pulled all his billboards and realized he was just totally wasting money, which is a great example of now understanding what's good marketing and what's bad. So, but you'll see it immediately. Have I said read the book? Have I said listen to the book? Like, I can't tell you, we do not do that enough. All right, any questions about this or any comments on building a story brand if anybody's read that?
I'm all good. The second time reading it, well, listening to it now.
Listening to it now? Yeah, it's phenomenal. All right. Oh, I went the wrong way. Lead generation. So one of the things that we talk about lead generation, and there's a third book. So there's 3 books in our branding guidelines. It's going to be Building a Story Brand. It's going to be Marketing Made Simple. And the third is Positioning by Al Race and Jack Trout. This is going to teach you how to be a specialist, not a generalist. in, you know, the category that you choose or your specific niche in the market. I know everybody's been telling you this from since the time you got licensed to, you know, take a niche in the market, but no one really does it. They don't actually do it because they don't know how to do it. And they don't understand the psychology of the reasons why to do it. Positioning by Al Race and Jack Trout will get you to the point where you understand how to do the right lead generation and kill it in any market. I've been doing niche, you know, my niche in the last 20 years has been new construction and investing. And 98% of all my transactions over the last 20 years have come from investing and new construction. I've got a lot of experience with both of those, really in depth, to where I was designing plans with builders and on the sites and helping build. And I grew up framing houses with my dad and all that kind of stuff. So I already kind of knew a lot about that from the beginning. But when you're really handling a lot of marketing and sales for a builder, you start to understand the builder's point of view and how to help them. And then this is how you can be a niche in the market. Same thing for investing. And I'm talking about anything. And I'm talking about a niche so small to where you're going to specialize in homes with pools in Biloxi. It could be that small. Homes with large fenced backyards in this specific area or this subdivision. Have it down. Now, does that limit your buyer pool? Of course, but does it mean that you have to only specialize in one niche? No, you just have to own that category. And that's what we teach you when it comes to positioning, and the book will really explain why to do it this way. But position yourself in a specialty. And this is how you want the specialties come down to a geographic area, a client type, or a property type. So a client type would be military, investor, home builder, first-time home buyer, those kind of things. Property type would be, let's say, waterfront, multifamily, let's say duplex maybe. Property type could be, let's say, homes with pools, homes with over an acre, homes with, you know, over 100 acres, ranches, those kind of things. Commercial property could be a property type. The idea is to specialize in 2 or 3 niches, so that way you can go deep in the content. And now when people contact you, they are contacting an expert. This is another reason why we have E and eAgent. To the back of the house, to us, it's empowered agent. But to the public, it's expert agent. And in the future, you'll start seeing more marketing and commercials and videos and all this kind of stuff where it showcases eAgents being the expert agent and an expert agent in a specific category, niche, specialty. That's what they're looking for. So let's say when we do something, videos on, hey, looking for waterfront property. Well, we have waterfront specialists. You need to click on this link to find the waterfront specialist in your geographic area. So now you will be a waterfront specialist or new construction or multifamily or homes with pools or whatever it is, whatever the specialty is, if that makes sense. But 2 spheres you market to, well, I'm getting ahead of myself here. So, yeah, two spheres you market to, and people don't realize this. So one is your old sphere, when you're like your friends and family, and your new sphere, your second sphere, is going to be all your past clients. But your past, see, a lot of people think, well, if I'm going to market to my sphere of influence, those are really general people. Yes, it is general when it starts out. But the more you niche in a market, let's say you're only going to be doing stuff for, let's say new construction. So when new construction, you're going to start niching in that. You'll know all the builders in your area. You'll know all the warranties. You'll know when their warranty expires. You'll know all their subs that they used. You'll know the paint on the wall. You'll have all the plats in the subdivisions. You'll have all the covenants in their subdivisions. You see what I'm saying? That's a niche. That's somebody that specializes in new construction. So when they have a question, they can contact you and go like, hey, I don't know about getting this fixed. Do you think this builder will cover it? No, you're out of your warranty time. Or I can put you in touch with their sub that already handled the plumbing for that job and was already familiar with it. Would you like their number? Now you're providing value in a sphere that is a specialty. So you have 2 spheres, your friends and family that kind of know you as just kind of general person, and now you have your past clients from a niche that you're marketing to. And this is how the client cycle works. So you'll market to a sphere or to the public. You'll get leads in, you'll nurture those leads, and those leads through the nurture process will become a transaction. And then that transaction, after the transaction, if they were in the public, they'll go back into your sphere from that niche, from that specialty, which if you give them value over a period of time, they will give you referrals, which in turn, that's a lead that you nurture that brings you a transaction, rinse and repeat. That makes sense. That's how the client cycle works if you work the client cycle. What people fall down is the lead nurture and the sphere nurture. They just don't do it. They just go from lead generation to transaction, back to lead generation, back to transaction, back to lead generation, back to transaction, and wonder why they're having to spend so much on always finding clients. They're always trying to, just rummage for clients all the time. They're always freaking out. Well, if they had a great process through lead nurture and sphere nurture, they would get referrals if they were providing value to their sphere. That's what I'm referring to. And we teach that in this class with lead generation. It's a little bit more about positioning from this book. It's also the third book in our branding guidelines. So definitely read that book or listen to it. It's a great listen to as well. All right, any questions about lead generation? All right. Personal development and leadership. I did this one here in our office, and it was more or less of kind of me at a whiteboard talking about a lot of different things because I had to really kind of whiteboard this personal development kind of journey and how you become a leader. So we kind of addressed leadership for a while. So just like clients look to you to lead them in the process, agents will look to you to lead them in their business. That's how leadership works. And a leader, I think a lot of people tend to define leadership incorrectly. A lot of people look at leadership and go, hey, I'm the leader and you're going to follow me. That's a very narcissistic way of looking at things. And a lot of people do that. You see a lot of that everywhere. And it's like, I'm the one with all the information. You got to come get it from me. And now it's going to be a top-down way of looking at things. It's like they point down at you and like get on to you for certain things. And you've already been part of these brokerages where the broker's always getting on the people and they're more managing people. I don't think so my take on it is you don't manage people, you manage your resources, you lead people. And the only way to lead people is to get them to see that you have already walked in their shoes. And if you want to create top producers in your brokerage, first you have to be a top producer. So when you're in this agent to broker plan, when you're still an agent, you should be trying, your number one way to do this is to become a top producer, because on your way to being top producer, you'll understand the whole process and then you'll be able to teach it to your agents when you open up your franchise. So what I do is I go through the importance of getting outside of your comfort zone, but you do it in a certain way. You have to understand that getting outside of your comfort zone and doing things for the first time, you're going to suck at it. It's going to be bad. You're going to fail. Expect to fail. Learn from the failure. Like, it's not a bad thing. It's a great thing because that's the only way you learn. If you have a success, you're not going to learn from it. You just automatically assume you knew what you were doing. It could have been just a freak of nature. It could have been luck. Could have been timing. Could have been a lot of things. But I think I have failed more than anyone. But I like to fail. I embrace it. I love getting out there and getting outside of my comfort zone, doing something for the first time, and finding a way to learn as much as I can from it. Because the second time I do it, I'm going to be a lot better. The third time I'm going to be doing it a lot better. But by the 50th time, I've mastered it. And that's how getting outside of your comfort zone looks. And I describe this in an overall diagram that we draw out. And you start to realize that, getting outside of your comfort zone is a very good thing, and you look forward to doing it. Another thing we go through are the 7 layers of comfort. So that encompasses understanding you're being resourceful from your environment. We'll go through kind of this list here. The 7 layers of comfort. The first is your environment. Your environment gives you information. And what you do with that information, you start thinking, it develops, it affects your thoughts, and your thoughts affect your feelings affect your actions, and your actions affect your habits. And once you've established these habits, they become your comfort zone. So you have to understand these 7 layers and how they really affect you in your life, personally, professionally, in your business, how you're trying to develop other people, how to get them to see it. all these kind of things. And I go through, I call it the 7-layer dip, but basically it's 7 layers of understanding how this process unfolds. And if you understand it, you realize what's going on, and you're not reacting to life, you're responding to it. When stuff happens in your office, when stuff happens in your life or your business and the market, you respond, you don't react, because you understand how the process works. Some other things we go through in this particular video or the class from Agent to Broker on personal development and leadership are the top 10 books for agents, the top 10 books for brokers, and the top 10 books for regionals. Now, the three books I mentioned before, Building a Story Brand, Marketing Made Simple, and Positioning, are not on any of these lists. Those are kind of must reads, or the kinds of the foundation. They're part of our branding guidelines. On top of those first 3 that you read, these are the other 30. If you're an agent, we've got a top 10 list for you. If you're looking to be a broker or already a broker, you want to, also read these 10, because you want to know the top 10 for agents, because you're going to have agents in your office. When they come to you with certain things going on, you need to be able to give them one of those 10 as a resource to help them through whatever issues they're going through, so they can see it from your point of view or from the third party's point of view. You ever had, I know we've had this discussion, in our office and at home too. My wife always tells me, she says, I've figured out now that I can't tell you what to do. I have to give you a book that tells you what I want you to do, and you'll get it from the book. You'll get it from a non-biased third party, but you won't take it from me. But it's just the same way with agents. A lot of times agents won't take your advice, but they'll take advice from a so-called expert in a book. Right? Same idea here. So you want to make sure that you have a good library or a good resource list to choose from when it comes to helping agents, helping yourself in your own brokerage. And when you become a regional, a leadership role as a regional partner is a little different set. It's more of a mentorship. Role. So when you look at being an agent, it's all about developing that tool set as an agent. When you're a broker, you're wanting to develop a skill set as a broker. And as a regional, you want to develop a mindset. So when you look at those 3, it's more about tool set, skill set, mindset. Those are the 3 that will set you up for success. Any questions about personal development, leadership? Because you have to really understand that when you're a broker, you're trying to help them personally and professionally. And you're kind of playing that bartender behind the bar, the psychologist, a lot of times too, just like we do with clients. The same thing happens at a broker role. And I think a lot of people don't realize this, but when you're a brand new broker, you think every time somebody comes to you with an issue, it's like some brand new thing, it's like you've never heard of and all that kind of thing, because you've never had that issue in your business. But the broker gets everyone's issues to kind of research and figure this out. So it doesn't take very long for you to get caught up on like the state compliance and what, best practices for marketing, accounting, earnest money, all this kind of stuff. It doesn't take very long, because when an issue comes up, it's not normally a big issue. It's very small, but they want to come to you for advice. And then you go, look, hey, I'm not really sure, but I'm going to look it up and I'm going to give you some good advice by the end of the day. And then that way, every time that happens with 10, 15, 20 agents in your office, just the more experienced you become. That's how being a broker over a period of time, it makes them look like they have a lot of experience, but it's not experience from their own transactions, experience from transactions with everybody in the office, because they get, they get that hub, I guess, kind of mentality where everybody's coming to them and being that hub. So if that makes sense. But anybody got any questions on this before we go to the next slide?
No questions, but I do have a comment. I love the fact that you absolutely want to help us to be better and to advance and create our own futures, basically to set us up for success. Because one of the biggest things in my business life, working for people and managers and even brokers, I've always been the kind of person that I learn and I love to share and help others. And I've learned along the way, a lot of people look at that as they look at it like I'm trying to be boastful or like I'm better than them.
Yeah.
And it is really so frustrating because they're intimidated by my knowledge instead of saying, wow, this girl she's learning, she's trying to do better. I want to help her. But yet they look at it as it's detrimental. So I'm so blessed, I feel like, to be in the position with you guys to take my knowledge to the next level.
Well, buckle up. There's a lot to learn. I'm telling you. I just talked to Yari. She's yeah, there's just a ton to learn constantly. We're constantly coming up with new creative stuff, new ways of doing things. We'll be coming up with some masterminds and some different events, book, clubs and all that kind of stuff. But we want to make sure that you develop the whole person. And the reason why I've been used to this for a long time, for several, decades, in helping people in this way, but we didn't really make it a formal part of our culture until we came up with the 5 pillars, stuff we were already doing, but we just didn't organize it into 5 pillars. And one of those were personal development and leadership, those 5 pillars. The other 4 are events. Another one is fitness and learning, like, just kind of how to, the nutrition, how, like, your physical body, how can you be a better person? Because it's hard for you to sometimes have the energy to run a brokerage when you're eating donuts, or when you don't have the oxygen to your brain, so it's one of those things that if you feel like you're in a culture that promotes health and wellness and fitness, then it just tends to rub off a little more, and maybe you get an extra 10 or 15% better physically. That's what that part is. Another one is mental health, and understanding that running a brokerage and running a business as a real estate agent or a team can be very stressful. We want to be sure that we're a safe landing space for people to talk about any kind of mental health issues they're going through, personally and professionally, and be that kind of person that they can rely on and beyond just a business role. And then the other part is the creative real estate investing I had, talked about previously, because we run the Real Estate Investor Association here locally, and other clubs will open, throughout the other general geographic areas that we go into. But we want to have videos online to teach people how to creatively invest, buy, and sell properties that no one teaches you in traditional real estate. Just doesn't happen. But those 5 pillars help people. Well, here's the reason why I kind of came up with those, or formally, because I had an agent in her office. She's still here, and she came from another office that she went there because of the I guess the compensation model that they were promoting at the time. And then a year passed and they changed the model and they went back to traditional stuff. And then she left and came here. And she was like, well, I asked her the reason why she went there. She said, because of the money. I said, well, why did you leave? Because of the money. And I said, well, did they do anything for you more than just the business relationship? She said, no. And I said, and that's when I started to realize that we need to make sure that every broker understands that if it's just a business relationship that you're looking for between you and your agents, then anybody else can undercut that business compensation plan. But if you have more things that you're offering, more things to hold them to the office, they're not leaving because they're getting so much more value than just a business compensation plan. Doesn't mean that you have to take advantage of them. You can offer them an extremely great competitive compensation plan, but you can also offer them so much more. And that's where they will see that there's a much better benefit of being with an eAgent office over another one. And they will recruit for you because they want those kind of people in the brokerage and in their life as well. So that's what we're trying to accomplish. And I think we're doing a pretty good job of it so far. Any other comments before we go into the next one? All right. Let's get to office decor and build out. This is going to be pretty expensive. One of the things that we want to make sure that everybody does is do not go and spend a ton of money on a brick and mortar office out of the gate. One of the things we do is that we develop spaces that are incubator spaces within other brokerages. So the one that you're looking at in that slide, off to the left, that wall, there are 3 offices, which are 3 franchises can be in those offices. So the way this state works, each state will be a little different, but we have it, to where it's a shared space. So you have a community area where you have a conference table, some day desks, there's a front reception area, meeting spaces, that kind of stuff. But then you also have a brokerage within, you have several franchise brokerages within one location. Now, these are suited out to where you have, this is suite D for this office. So you have D1, D2, and D3. So you have 3 franchises, 1 location, 1 shared space, 1 shared overhead, and you can do it for $250, $350, $400, whatever the office rent is for that space. Whoever's running that, the major space that's being leased out by the landlord, and then they give you a sublease for that space. But the idea being, it's when I went out on my own, I normally did it out of your house, or you do it from a very small office. You can't afford it. You're always freaking out and being more stressed out about overhead and costs. This way, you don't have to do that. We want to make sure that the brokers that go out on their own do it very economically. They do it to where it's not stressing them out, and the overhead is low, so they can spend that money on marketing, recruiting agents, and then you get to a point to where now they're uncomfortable where they are, and they have 6, 8, 10 agents. Well, now they need their own space, but now that broker can afford it at that time. That's the idea when it comes to building out a brokerage from scratch. That's how we do it here. Unless you already have 6, 8, 10 agents, you can go ahead and out on your own. But the idea being, build it more cost effectively and to where it makes sense. Don't get ego in the mix of this. That's why we want to make sure in our culture that when somebody wants to go out on their own, do it from their house. And that's another way you can do it. You can do it from your house and meet people at the regional office. You can do that. And the regional office will just charge you $75, $150, whatever it is per month. And now you can just meet, you can use the office, all that kind of stuff without having to pay for all that stuff. So that's another way that we want to make sure that the franchisees get out of the gate and started correctly and not with a lot of overhead. So when you look at office decor and build out, one of the branding guidelines, in our branding guidelines, we go through the office colors and decor colors, those kind of things, and making sure that you're not just, the overall look of the office is one where essentially you want the office's primary goal or primary value to recruit agents. When an agent comes into the office for the first time to meet you, since they've already met with you for coffee or lunch, and now they're coming to your office, you want them to come to your office and go, huh, oh, wow, this is really nice. This is modern. This is this, that, and the other. It's not just a normal office. It's kind of more of a sleeker, minimalist version of a modern office. And that's the overall look we're trying to accomplish. Now, we have got a lot of, things that you can go through certain offices. You can go through this office in a Matterport 3D. And in that Matterport 3D are Matter tags. And basically you can click on that tag and it will tell you, it'll show you a link where you can go on Amazon to get that chair, or to go here locally to get that piece of furniture, order that rug from, Wayfair, whatever it is. That's the idea. So then you have an idea of what things cost, where to go get them. So if you're in a certain office and you're like, hey, what about these chairs? That's a really cool desk. I like that, the way that TV stand is, all those kind of things. You'll be able to go online and see where those things are purchased, unless it was like kind of a refurbished piece from some place that somebody did locally. But at least the Matter tag will tell you, hey, it was purchased locally, somebody redid it, and that's about it. I can give you their information. But that's the idea. You want to be able to have the ability to understand what things cost and where to get them. So when you want to open your office or you're in the process of doing it, you can get a lot of ideas and stuff from somebody else's office. It doesn't mean that you have to use everything, but at least gives you a starter to understand where you can go get stuff and all those kind of things. What makes a space inviting? So one of the things that I did with this specific office is I got with a local designer, Adrienne Elliott, and she helped us design this office, and she picked out a lot of the stuff in this office, the rug, certain things. I gave her certain criteria, certain colors, and she went and said, hey, if you want this piece, they'll give you 3 different pieces that will work for this, what you're trying to complete. And she'll give you a luxury high-end price. You can get this version, or here's a mid-range price, or this is a low-range price. Kind of does the same thing, but you can get 3 different prices, and it was much easier to do it that way. You can find a designer in your local area to kind of help you do that too. But that's a good way of doing it, and it makes a lot more sense when you have somebody else kind of put their eyes on it, especially if you're not talented in that way when it comes to certain interior design. So the purpose of having a brick and mortar office, like I was saying, is that first impression from a a prospect that you're recruiting, an agent you're recruiting. Secondly, it's a nice space functionally for your agents to work from. And thirdly, when agents bring clients to the office, they now have an association look and branding with their, with eAgent brand now associated with that agent. It wasn't like in somebody's house. It wasn't at just some old office from 1983, those kind of things. It's just a really fresh space that people feel like that they want to be associated with. Let's look at let's say, cost of improvements. One thing we'll go through too is certain costs. I know one of the other offices we have here locally was built out from scratch, and we're going to go through those costs on like what it took for painting, what it took for the flooring, and any kind of like building out of the offices and putting on doors, this door over that door, all that kind of stuff. So those are kind of the cost of improvements we'll go through based on that particular office, and well, that's actually two of them that did that, so we'll go through those two. The build out do's and don'ts. One of the things that you'll want to do is you want to have one at least area for day desks. You see in the back underneath the E, there are two desks that are not really anyone's desk. They're not assigned anyone, but anybody can just come in and use that space. And when they're done using it, they take their stuff and leave with it. They don't leave it behind. Then you have another area where people can kind of come. You can do some training. If it's a larger office, you have more of a larger training room, but if it's a smaller space, you want to have more of a conference room table, you can do that. And you'll see off to the right up here, there's a television with a large screen TV. Normally we tell everybody to get either, well, you get two, an Apple TV to hook to it, and also a Chromecast if it's not already built into the TV. And that way that if they have a Mac or a PC, they can cast any kind of video or something like that to the TV for any kind of presentation or anything that you're doing educational wise. The canvas art that you see on the walls, we've got about 20 different versions of kind of inspirational canvases that I've created, and we don't sell them. You don't sell them. What you end up doing is you just download the image, and we have instructions to go to a canvas dealer online, and you order it through them, and it comes through the mail, and then you order the frame in different versions. Whether you can't see it in the black and white photo, but it's a light wood, different white or black or something like that. But it depends on what your office is needing. I know that when Adrienne came into our office and she started looking at a lot of the stuff we'd already done, a lot of it was blue, gray, and white. And she said the office has a cold feel to it because there's no warm colors to it. You need to add warm colors on it. She said, what is the warm colors? And she said, a light wood. And when you brought in the woods, it gave it more of a warmer touch, but it still felt modern. So this is one of the aspects when it comes to your office decor and build out. You want how to give it a good vibe. When people come in, you want to have a vibe when they associate with you, your agents, or the transaction that they're working with. Another thing is design services. I talked about with Adrienne, or you can use somebody local in your area. The use of glass is always a really big plus. Not all the core areas, not all office spaces will lend itself to, let's say, the use of glass. But we didn't do it on this particular office, but on these doors, on these sides, you want to potentially take the door off, put one in with like glass in the center, so it feels like there's more transparency between the rooms. And if you're in a room, you're working, let's say in a room, when there's no windows or there's no like glass, it feels like you're in a cave. And it kind of feels weird over a period of time. Probably is not a big thing for the first few days, but over a period of time, kind of the overhead lights or something like that will kind of get to you, and you kind of like, it just kind of feels weird. So the use of glass is always a positive thing. Agent logo and decals, we'll go through that too, and how to get decals on all the walls. Where do you get that from? Local dealer or local sign company, that kind of thing. And then front door requirements, we don't see it in this particular photo, but what is going to be on the front door when it comes to those decals out there is going to be an eAgent. Let's say this office is eAgent Nexus. Well, our state won't let us put eAgent Nexus on the front door. What you'll want to do is just put eAgent, and it's okay. Each state's going to be a little different, and we understand that we'll have different requirements for each state. But when it comes to, let's say, this particular office, what you want to have on the front of the building, and also, down on that list to the right is external signage. So the front to the public, it just says eAgent because we have multiple franchises in the same office. So you don't want to say one office outside and you have to walk, the public has to be confused to walk through one office to get to another. So you want to have a generic eAgent on the outside of the building, and on the inside, now that's where you have different signs on the door or plaques next to the doors that say, hey, this is this office, the next office down is that franchise, the next office down is that brokerage. So anybody have any questions on office decor, build out? I know maybe some of you have only been to specific offices, but as one of the things that we do from a broker point of view, is we have a broker owner meeting once a month. So all the brokers, all the franchisees get together in a meeting once a month, and it rotates offices. So we'll be at this office one month, and the next office will be at somebody else's office, next month will be at somebody else's office. And going through everybody else's offices, you'll see what their decor and build out is, and you'll get an idea of what they're like. And hey, I didn't think about this, a stand for my printer here. I may, do away with the one I have and get this one. Where'd you get that? So it gives you a lot of more experience in being in somebody else's office, and they're willing and wanting to share with you a lot of the stuff that we do, here at eAgent, where you got them. And this is the most updated version of the desk. And these desks back here, I don't know if people see them, but these desks in front of this chair behind these knee walls are actually standable desks. They've got glass tops where you can charge your phone. They have a USB ports. So they're stand-up desks. So that's one of the things that we want to make sure that that we take into account if somebody's in there all the time. Have some desks that look clean, look modern, but also functionally do well too. But anybody have any questions when it comes to the build out of the offices or any kind of decor items?
Justin, one question I did have, you mentioned, it's not really about the build out or the office per se, but you said starting out when you become a broker with eAgent, that you have the option to start in your office before you go into an actual office setting. Can
Yeah.
you elaborate a little more on that, just so I have an idea?
Yeah, so regionals, so like let's say Brad is a regional partner. So what he's going to do in his office over there, if he doesn't already go ahead and buy something else, because I know he's already looking to, he wants more of a regional setup. So with a regional partner, we'll normally have what we call a synergy office. And a synergy office is an office space where you can have multiple franchises in one location. So basically, you're like a small business incubator. As a regional partner, you're helping those franchisees within your region, help them grow within one office, and they're all in the same office. When you can have 2, 3, 5, maybe 10 different franchisees in one location, where the outside of the building says eAgent, on the inside, there's 10 different brokerages, all utilizing the same common facilities and common areas, but they don't have to pay for all the overhead. It's almost like when you have all these team offices in, another larger brokerage. It's the same concept, but now it's just from a brokerage point of view. But the regional partner goes out and kind of opens a synergy office. And in that synergy office, the municipality comes out and they call suiting out the office, which means it'll be, this office will be suite D1, this office is suite D2, this office is suite D3, and so on, based on the size of the office. And that's how you want to do it. So when you create your brokerage license with the state, it'll say your address will be suite D1 at this address, or suite whatever it is, not the actual suite D. So like within this office, this is eAgent United, down here is eAgent Nexus. So this is suite D3, this is suite D2 when it comes to MREC and the overall address for all the agents and on websites and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of giving it a little bit of an idea, but the regional will rent you out space based on what he's paying for the overall space. And he's wanting you, or she's wanting you, to help you grow your franchise, because their incentive is to help grow the brand in your market. And in doing so, they're wanting to help you grow that franchise, grow your brokerage for you and recruit agents and all that kind of stuff. So when you're first starting out, you can just rent out a small space within somebody else's regional office. This is the one in Ocean Springs. And then, we had one in Gulfport, so we let that lease go. And then we're still looking for some other space in Gulfport. But basically, Brad, when he started out, he was in a small space, just like this one is, a little 10 by 10 room. And I think he got to 5 or 6 agents. He opened an office in Pass Christian for about a year, maybe. And then he bought the office that he's in now in Gulfport. and then just became a regional. So that's kind of how that process starts, if that answers your question.
Yes. Actually, I told him when we talked about me becoming a broker with eAgent that he would have to give me that office because it was so close to my house. I told him I wanted to buy it. And he started laughing. So he already knows that I was interested in possibly doing that one day. So
Well, yeah, it makes total sense. And I mean, he may be able to have Gulfport suite out that property there to give you some, a different setup. But there's just some different, each state has their own parameters on what they require as far as what a real estate office can and can't be. And we just have to make sure that those suiting out of the regional office meets those requirements for the state. But that's really the only catch. And, within Mississippi, we already know those. I think we're the only ones to ever do that, to where we have several brokerages in one location under one kind of hierarchical, franchise or brand, which took a little work to understand and to I guess figure out their requirements and what the do's and don'ts and all that kind of stuff. And once we figured that the rules, where he goes, as long as you play by these rules, we don't care what you do, what it looks like. And I'm like, all right. So then we submitted it and they okay it. So that's the idea. All right, so let's get to the next one here. And that's where we are, 11:30, so we're getting close. All right, Brokerment and accounting. So Brokerment is our back office management, like brokerage management software online. Everything is online in the cloud. Brokerment is 2. This is how you're going to pay your commissions to your agents. This is how you're going to pay yourself. This is how you're going to pay the royalties. This is going to pay any referrals. This is basically your brokerage management and reporting software that keeps track of everything. And then it integrates with QuickBooks Online, and then it integrates with what's called Payload, and Payload ends up paying out the actual checks through direct deposit. So that's what Brokerment is. It's like you're learning KV Core or learning DocuSign Rooms. It's just now another piece of technology at a brokerage level. And when you get your own brokerage, so all agents pay a technology package fee. Brokers, when you get your own franchise, there's a brokerage level technology. And in that technology, you get an upgraded version of some things like DocuSign Rooms or KV Core, because you need larger access as the broker level. But you also need stuff like QuickBooks Online, which also comes with our brokerage management, brokerage technology package, and Brokerment is another one. So those are going to be the things that we make sure that you keep on track of and that you use, because this is what it all comes down to, our audits. We can do those remotely. We have access to it. So we just want to make sure that everybody's doing what they should be doing and not creating any issues for them accounting wise or bookkeeping wise down the road. So where you get to paying taxes and you realize, oh man, I didn't even think about doing that. Well, as a franchise, I've been a franchisee in the past. And my franchisor, and I've talked to other franchisees and other real estate franchise systems, and a lot of them do the same thing. But if I wanted to use whatever, it didn't matter. There weren't any bookkeeping or accounting practices that were requirements from the franchisor. You can do whatever you want, however you want. And if we seem like we need to audit your books, well, then we'll do that. And that was only their take. And I think it's a really kind of misstep from a franchisor. And if their model is going out and selling a franchise to a already successful brokerage that has 100 agents in it, they're probably already got their accounting, on top of things. And they probably don't need to provide this accounting service or accounting classes and, value and resources to the franchisees because they're already an established brokerage. But the problem is you only can get 2, 3, 5 franchises within that area. And we don't have any exclusivity. So we want to make sure that all franchisees can understand or needs to understand the bookkeeping and accounting best practices. And that's why we have Brokerment. So it kind of keeps everything on one page. And not only that, if everybody's using the same QuickBooks Online software, they're using the same Brokerment software, when we have somebody that's wanting to give you do some troubleshooting with you, then everybody already knows what you're doing, or another broker in another office can help you because they're using the exact same software. Not everybody's using all this different stuff. So everybody's on the same page, everybody can help everybody, and that's kind of the general idea for having everything on the same. So you can use the QuickBooks Online app, which makes it really easy to like snap receipts for, you know, for expenses for your office and all that kind of thing. But we'll go through bookkeeping best practices. We have a bookkeeper that you can hire that everybody's kind of using. I'm pretty sure everybody, maybe one out of everybody isn't using her, but they already had somebody doing bookkeeping. But she basically creates all your books, sets you up. And not only that, but part of when you open your own franchise, I pay her to set everything up, all the integrations between Brokerman and QuickBooks Online and all this kind of stuff, and payload and your checking accounts, and get it all set up. And then she'll do a several hour training with you. And then it's up to you to keep paying her for doing your bookkeeping, or you do it on your own. And every once in a while, every quarter, let's say you want to pay her per hour if you want to, you can do that too. But me personally, I'd rather pay her monthly fee and just have it kind of out of sight, out of mind, and just kind of having somebody oversee that. Because you don't want this kind of lurking in the back of your head, providing stress of, I forgot to do this. I know I paid this person out, but did it actually do it right in QuickBooks Online? Did I put this expense in there? None of that stuff. 1099s, she handles it all, and you don't have to worry about any of that kind of stuff. And now you can really focus on, recruiting agents and adding value to those agents and transactions. So that's what's kind of getting an idea behind the Brokerman accounting. When you come recording expenses, she'll teach you how to like track the mileage in an app, creating multiple agent compensation plans in Brokerman. That's one of the things that, Yari's gone through a lot in the last year, or not last year, I guess we've had Brokerman since April, I think. March or April, we started with Brokerman from a different system. We went here because it's a little different. It's a much easier to understand. So setting up compensation plans and having multiple compensation plans for the same agent. Let's say that you provide a referral or a lead. Well, maybe that's a different comp plan or a different split than they're normally getting. What if on this particular kind of transaction, it could be just a transaction fee? So those are the different compensation plans you can have with multiple agents, and she will help you set that up, and we'll help you set that up in Brokerman. It'll help you onboarding agents, and we're talking about offboarding agents, and it'll also keep track of your annual award reporting at the end of the year. So when we're trying to, order awards for everybody when it comes to the gala every year, we want to make sure that the reporting is correct and it's backed up, and the agent goes, yeah, that's exactly what, I have in my book, in my system that, I've been keeping track of, and everybody's on the same page. So does anybody have any questions on Brokerman, just bookkeeping or just general accounting practices?
No,
All
I'm
right.
good.
All good? All right. So tax strategy with CPA. These are some of the things that we're covering in our class when it comes to tax strategy. Planning, tax planning, these kind of things, accounting do's and don'ts. One of the things that, I was talking with our bookkeeper, she was asking, do some your brokerages and some don't, or, what's your process for, building up those tax payments, whether it be quarterly or annually. Do you want to do that? Do you not want to do that? Well, that's some of the strategy sessions you want to have with a CPA. So one of the things we want to do is when you come on board as a franchisee, we want to give you a resource as a CPA, just kind of give you a general overview of like what you need to do, what this means. How do you choose an LLC? How is that LLC going to be taxed? Those kind of things, just general overview for an hour or two. And then it's up to you to continue to use that CPA or use your own or whatever else. But we at least want to give you a general knowledge from a CPA's point of view of how you should run your business. Not just a brokerage, it's a business. You need to learn how to run it as a business. Another thing is the sending out 1099s. The CPA can do it. The bookkeeper can do it. You can do it on your own. A lot of different ways to do it. Use of profit and loss statement. So if this is what I think is kind of a little funny and a little sad. Brokers don't know if their brokerage is profitable or is it losing money. They don't know if their marketing is paying off or specific marketing is paying off. They're just busy doing transactions and kind of reacting to the market and what's going on in their brokerage, but they don't actually track things. If you're using a good bookkeeper, the bookkeeper will be able to give you reports on if your business is profitable or not, or what's making your business profitable and which ones aren't. So what I call pump it or dump it, quarterly, you can kind of have a meeting with them or yourself and go over the reports and go, hey, should I pump more money into this, or should I dump money from this, and then just remove that lead generator or this thing that I'm doing for all the agents and nobody's using, or something like that. Whatever it is, I call it a pump it and dump it. So that's the idea behind that. But if you don't have the trackable reports, you don't understand what is going on. And when you're in the blind, you make decisions that affect your business with not the right information. You're making uninformed decisions instead of informed decisions. So keeping up with the profit and loss statement and other financial reporting, but another one, when you're talking to a CPA, is insurance. So what kind of insurance should I have on my business? Should I have different insurance? Is it general liability insurance? Is it a lot of different things? You may get you in contact with a local insurance provider to make sure that you're having the right amount of insurance, not just for that. When it comes to, everybody looks at just E&O, and E&O is the only thing you get. Well, as a franchisor, we require general liability insurance, especially if you have a brick and mortar business. Because if somebody comes in, trips over a stool, hits their head, and has a concussion, got to go to the hospital, and now in a coma, well, now they're going to, if they have any family member that has any kind of idea to talk to an attorney, the attorney is always going to tell them to sue. It's only inevitable. But if you don't have general liability insurance, what happens is they sue you, they sue the brokerage, and they sue the franchisor. But in our franchise agreement, we've already stated to give you should have general liability insurance for this protection. So if you don't get it, you let it lapse, we're not in fault, you are. So you don't want to have, this issue come up. That's why we have general liability insurance. And in the franchise agreement, it states what amounts you need to have. Another version that the CPA will go over is cost segregation, estate planning, succession planning. Let's say if something happens to you, well, what does the brokerage do then? Is it just like implode, just goes belly up, or do you have a succession plan? Does somebody take over? Does it go to a spouse? If it goes to a spouse, do you have a principal broker that can take your spot? Or if you hire a principal broker and something happens to them, what's the succession plan? That's kind of some of the ideas behind talking to a CPA when it comes to tax planning and strategy. And then also working with the right bookkeeper or doing your own books. Are you going to do it this way? Are you going to do it that way? How are you going to do it? And that's kind of the general idea behind a tax strategy session with a CPA. Anybody have any questions when it comes to, this class and, the agent to broker plan? All right.
I have a question. With
Okay.
that CPA, would that be Nicole, or should that be like a separate person?
Yeah. She actually has the credentials, but she's not technically CPA, the way she does it, the way she decided to do it. So it would be somebody that's a licensed CPA. And we're going through a few different ones. And by the time, let's say, somebody gets their franchise, it may be somebody else that we have with a CPA. So I'm always kind of keeping that just kind of in limbo, because let's say we find a different CPA that's better at this than what we're already using, or let's say this CPA is much better in this state based on the state rules and regulations when it comes to accounting for real estate brokerages or something. So whoever that CPAs will use will get probably the best one for that state, and then kind of work from there. All right. Next to us, so compensation plans and incentives. So one of the main things that you'll want to understand and decide on is what your brokerage is going to offer agents. If it's not just going to be a solo broker role for you, if you're just going to be having a franchise with just be a solo broker, and that's fine too. But if you want to open franchises, open agents, open your franchise with agents, I'm sorry. And you have to understand, what are the competition in your market? How are those models going to stack up to you? What you can provide? What is your value? How much training you're going to provide? With 100% models, let's say, are you going to offer a 100% compensation model? And if so, what are those? If you're going to offer a split, well, what are those splits? We're going to be new agents are going to be this split, and maybe top producers are going to be this split. Something else to consider is what the other eAgent franchisees our brokers are in your market are also offering. They're probably offering it generally, I would say 85% the same in general. And then they'll have these one-offs for certain things or certain ways they like doing it within their office or certain things that they're taking on. But in general, I have found that they're all somewhat the same because they feel like it's a great split for their market and it's all pretty competitive. But I think in general within a market, everybody's going to be very similar, but you'll have these one-offs. And in those one-offs, well, what are those going to be? Are you going to have a cap? Are you going to have no cap? Are you going to be part 100% model on this? 100, part split on this? You can do that too. It doesn't have to be all split or all 100%. You can have 100% when they do these kind of transactions. You can have split when they do these kind of transactions. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. Personal transactions. Well, what is that? When an agent has a personal transaction and they sell or buy their own house. Well, what does that mean? Mentor split. If you have mentors that are going to be mentoring new agents or agents that come on board for the first 90 days or something, well, what are those splits going to be looking like? It's going to be recruiting bonuses. Are there going to be office referrals? Let's say that you refer a lead to somebody in the office. Well, what is that referral? Is it different for this lead over that lead? Could be, but you got to kind of get an idea of what that looks like. Let's say an agent is working with a builder. Maybe it's a reduced rate, or they're working with an investor. Both of those maybe are doing multiple transactions a year. Is that a reduced rate? If so, how much? What does that look like? Competition in your market, like I was saying before, just getting a general overview of what everybody else is doing, and then kind of add, you don't have to do what they're doing. Just make sure that whatever you're providing, the agent sees the same amount in value. So whatever they're paying in, make sure that they get the same amount or more, you exceed it in value. I don't mind if I'm an agent and I'm in a brokerage and I'm paying into that brokerage over $100,000 a year, but I feel like I've gotten over $100,000 worth of value, I'm cool with it. But if I'm not getting a lot of value out of that office, I better not be paying much. So you have to figure out what kind of value you're offering, what kind of office culture you're going to provide, as far as training, as far as support, as far as culture, and then what those splits look like. Now, the one thing I would probably say is don't ever make your office based on your last office. Always clean slate it and go across the board. What am I wanting to offer? What is it worth it to me and my time? And then if I only have to spend this much time, well, I don't mind, giving them more. But if I have to spend more time and have to do more, well, then maybe I need to get more. But you have to understand what that looks like, and it's got to be competitive. So what happens in the compensation model, when I first had a franchise several years ago, probably 6-7 years ago, I had a person come in and he had about 70 transactions per year, and he was thinking he was going to get some great deal. And I said, well, it's great up until a point until resentment starts happening from me toward you. And he said, what do you mean? And I said, well, after about 18 or 20 transactions, you're going to cap. And now I'm stuck. I'm going to be on the hook. I'm going to be liable for the other 60 or 50 transactions. And he goes, well, I didn't think about it that way. And I'm like, well, that's why we have to have this conversation, because you may be doing a lot and it's a great exposure for the office and there's a lot of signs out and all that kind of stuff and there's a lot of volume, but there's also liability that comes along with that. So how do I get that offset and not build up resentment toward you just because it's exposure or just because it's this? Now, if they're a great agent and they're a mentor in the office and they're doing all kind of training and helping other people out, maybe I don't care. Maybe there's no resentment at all. Maybe I feel like I'm still not providing enough value because he's providing more value to the office than I am. Could be. Maybe the other way around. So you need to make sure that whatever compensation plans and incentives you have put in place, there's no resentment building up on either side. So if they're paying in more than they're getting in value, resentment's going to set in for them over a period of time. And for a certain period of time, and you hit them on the right window and the right timing, they're going to be easily picked off by another brokerage that feels like they'll give them more value. When they don't, we're not really going to, but that other brokerage will spin it like, hey, I can do this for you since you're not getting it there. Now, will they be able to do that with a lot of eAgent offices? Probably not as much as some of the other brands, but it really boils down to your office culture. And I will say this, there is no exclusivity for your franchise. you can have, like I was looking, when I was showing you that picture a few slides ago, when you have multiple offices in the same location, there's no franchise exclusivity when it comes to geographic area. So you can have one on this side of the street, you can have one on the other side of the street, doesn't matter. But if you're not providing value to your agents, they will go somewhere else. And the first place they'll go is another eAgent office. So when you want to make sure that you're providing the same amount of value, that's why we have these broker owner meetings, finding out what people are doing well, and we start implementing that in all of our offices, because we want to make sure that the tide raises with all offices, all ships, right? All the agents are not only getting value, but they're more evangelical about telling people about your office and what a great place to work it is. So that's what we're wanting more than anything else. But, you know, the mentor splits are one thing, the recruiting bonuses. So what are recruiting bonuses going to be in your office? Does that look different for if they bring on a new agent, when they bring on a top producer agent that's doing 100+ transactions? Probably so. But well, how are you going to pay them? Is it going to be over a period of time? Is it a straight upfront fee? Is it something off of their closings? Is it something off their, let's say, invoices that they're paying in? Who knows? You have to figure out what those recruiting bonuses are. It could be a recruiting bonus where, hey, I'll pay you $1,500 in extra leads this month, which now the leads are probably worth more than the 1,500. That could be another way of looking at it. A lot of different things. And that's some of the stuff that we discuss when it comes to compensation plans and incentives in the agent to broker class for this specific topic. So when you're going through these slides, all these slides are different topics that we would cover in depth in a specific video. They're probably an hour and a half to a little more than 2 hours for each of these slides. Another things we'll work with is no special deals. This is something I totally advocate. Don't make any special deal for a specific agent, because eventually that will get out and resentment will set in for other people in the office, to where, how come I didn't get that special deal? Now there's going to be specific deals that maybe show up that you didn't have as part of your compensation plans. Maybe a new plan can be created for somebody specific, but it doesn't mean it can't be offered by somebody else if they meet the same requirements. That's the way I look at it. That's the way I would recommend everyone doing it. Don't make special deals, because it'll get out and it'll just create drama and problems. So if somebody comes in and says, hey, I want to pay 100%, I don't want to pay a royalty, I don't want to pay you anything, how do we work this out? I'm like, great. You come right in, you do weekly classes for me, you recruit an agent every 2 months, and you don't have to pay anything to me. Cool. Now, to see how that's out of the box thinking. Now they can be 100%, they don't have to pay for anything. I pay their technology, I pay their referrals, they don't have to pay anything to the brokerage, but what they're paying into the brokerage is time. They're going to recruit more agents into the office for me, they're going to do all my training for me. That's a fantastic win-win. But that's not probably how other brokerages view it. But if somebody else wants to do all the training and do more training and then bring in more agents, I don't mind paying them 100%. But that's the one way to looking at it. So no special deals, but whatever specific deals that you create, make sure anybody else can hit those deals if they meet the requirements. Team plans is another thing. So if you have a compensation for agents, well, what about teams, husband and wife teams? Is it half cap? Is it quarter cap? Is it a team cap? Whatever it is there no cap and it's just this split? Who knows? Top producer plans for certain people, and if they hit certain rewards by the end of the year, maybe they get a different percentage or a different broker split next year because they did so many transactions the previous year. That could be another thing that you can do for as an incentive or a plan, a compensation plan for the next year. So there's a lot of different things that you can work with, but one of the things that I came up with several years ago was, if somebody, let's say if somebody's on a 70-30 split, but they're spending $500 a month with Zillow or Realtor.com. Well, I wouldn't mind, instead of me trying to put money into their Zillow spend or something like that so they can get more leads, I'll give them a better split. So let's say for every $500 that they spend in leads, I'll give them a 5% bump in the commission. So if they're on a 70-30 and they're spending $500 a month on Zillow, well, then I'll bump them to 75-25. They just got to make sure that they're paying their monthly leads. So then I know that they're going to be working the leads. They're going to be trying to convert them because they have more skin in the game. And if they have more skin in the game, they'll be working more leads, they'll be converting more leads, and they'll overall have more transactions for the office, And yes, they'll be at a 75-25 split instead of 70-30, but I'd rather have 10 75-25s than 3 70-30s. That makes sense. So that's kind of the idea. And you can kind of work it up to like an 80-20, and 80-20 maybe was where it tops out, and they don't get more than 80-20, or maybe goes up to 90-10, or maybe goes all the way to 100%. Who knows? You have to figure out what these compensation plans are, maybe talk to other brokers, what they're doing in their office, get with your regional, figure that out, and come up with your compensation plans and incentives. But there's a lot of different things we tackle in that video as well. Does anybody else have any questions or comments when it comes to compensation plans and incentives? All right. Yep, go ahead. Are you good? All right, recruiting best practices. This can be a little weird too, because I think a lot of times people do this incorrectly. They do not enough, or they do too much, and there's not a really good balance. But who's the best agent to recruit and why? What does that agent look like? It's almost like when you say, like, hey, my office is going to have this culture, we're going to have these kind of comp plans, it's going to be this way. Well, who's the target agent for what you're providing? You have to figure that out. Is it top producers? Is it teams? Is it seasonal agents that are doing more than 12 transactions a year? Is it brand new agents? Who knows? Is it a multitude? Is it a hybrid? Is it many of those? You have to figure out what's the best agent to recruit and why. Who's that target agent? Excuse me. And targeting top producers. Well, how do you target top producers? The weird thing about top producers, if they're doing 24 plus in transactions, I think their window for them to move to one brokerage to another is going to be less, because they're going to be busy a lot of times, and they're looking for this window of opportunity to move. So they're more of a longer tail recruiting prospect than somebody that's doing 1 to 5 transactions, because their window of opportunity for them to move is much greater. But on a top producer, you may be able to get them, but you may get them 6 to 9 months down the road when they feel like, hey, yes, I've got a plan B. I can jump ship to that other brokerage any point in time. I'm just waiting for my cap to end before they start that again. I'm waiting for this large apartment complex to close in 3 months. It's always something like that. So as long as you're providing value to them, continue to provide value to them, and then make sure that they understand that even though they're coming in as a top producer, they also need to adhere to the policies and procedures and the culture and everything else, because you can have somebody coming in and doing several hundred transactions, and I would fire them in a heartbeat if they're providing, they're creating more drama and issues in the office. If they're, creating issues with 3 other agents that are doing 5 transactions a month or 5 transactions a year, that top producer's got to go, because I don't take any top producer, in my office for very long before I realize they've got to go. And I've seen it happen before. I've done it before. So I don't treat my brokerage like it's an asset, like pit stop. I want to make sure that the top producers are getting their value, but also the office is getting value from it too, and not detracting from it. They're not making withdrawals from the office. They're making deposits. So using text and emails, what do you use text with trying to recruit people? Do you use emails? Do you do, both of them? Or do you doing email campaigns? You're doing text campaigns? You're setting up videos where they can watch? Are you sending them videos within an email or text? Do you have a recruiting website? All these kind of things can play into it. Are you using a funnel system where you start with maybe an email campaign and you send them a couple texts trying to get them to watch a video, and then once they watch the video that you already keep track of, then you ask them for maybe thoughts on the video, and a lot of different things that come into a funnel system, which basically is just a process of how to recruit an agent. And you have a different funnel for, let's say, a top producer than you would be a brand new agent. So you just need to understand those. I think a FOMO incentive would be something really cool to do, because let's say you meet with somebody for the first time or second time, or maybe even third time, you're like, hey, look, we're getting to the point now where I think you get a really general idea of what we can offer. And if you come on board in the next 30 days, you'll get this incentive, whatever that incentive is. And And then, you know, that could incentive could last for 12 months. It could last for 90 days. If you just give them something out of the gate, it could be, you know, you gave them those 3 books I mentioned before. It could be an incentive. You know, it could be some training that you're going to send them to. It could be $1,000 worth of free leads in Zillow, whatever it is. The idea is just to give them a FOMO incentive. So like it gets them off the fence. And so, oh, there's a time limit here before, you know, this goes away. That's always a good one. The recruiting best practices when you're talking about agents in your office, you can get a lot of help from your agents to recruit for you because you're not going to always have the influence with all these agents and the whole market. But your agents are doing transactions, and every time they do a transaction, you can ask the agent, is this somebody that you did a transaction with that is a really good fit for our office? Were they professional? Were they always getting back to you? Were they treating their clients well? Was their paperwork on point? All these kind of things. And you can just ask them. And if it was, maybe you can reach out to them and say, look, hey, Jan from our office just said you are amazing to work with. And she said you would be a great asset to our office. And she asked me to call you. Would you like to have coffee or lunch so we can discuss some options? Doesn't matter if you want to come on board with us or not, but at least you would know other options. If for some reason down the line in the future, things went wrong or whatever, and you want to make a shift, you at least know something about our office. And you know, I'd like to meet you and kind of just give you a general, you know, idea or rundown of what we do and what we offer. No, hard selling and all that kind of stuff. I just want to make sure that you have the information. And if they do, maybe what you do is you bring a book and you give them value in, you know, that coffee or breakfast or something like that. And then you check back up with them after they read the book. So now you've probably provided them more value than sometimes their own broker has for years in that one sit down. You know, maybe give them some general best practices in their own line of work, you know, where if they're doing 8 or 10, 12 transactions and you over lunch, you discuss with them and it's like, hey, where are you wanting to be? If you want to do 24 plus, well, what does that look like? I can help you get there. If you don't want to come on board with me, this is how you do it anyway. I'm going to tell you how to do it. And I'm going to show you how to do it, you know, and I'll walk you through it in my brokerage when you come on board. But if you want to just start the process and kind of go, I can kind of give you some pointers and kind of get you in the right direction. Maybe even give you a few resources. And that way they get value from you regardless. So a lot of times what people don't realize is when you're in a brokerage, from time to time, there's a roller coaster ride that happens. Sometimes it comes from other agents that are just creating drama in the office and it's a bad culture and you don't want to be there anymore. Or maybe the broker screwed you over in some referral, or another agent screwed you over on a referral or some deal, and the broker took their side over your side. There will come a time in every brokerage where you'll look to the broker or the brokerage or the overall culture and go, you know what? I don't know if this is right for me. You'll second guess that. And when that happens, you want your brokerage for those agents to be the one that they look to first. You want to be what I call that spare tire in the back trunk. Yeah, all four of those tires are doing great now. But if it ever hit a flat, I want to be your spare tire that you look to when it comes to some issues down the road. If something happens, I just want you to be able to call me first and at least give me a shot because I think we'd be a great fit and I can help you a lot in your business. That makes sense. So that's kind of that FOMO. That's kind of what you're trying to accomplish. And in each one, reach one is something that you can do in your own office with your own agents. So we'll say over a period of time of a year, you can tell an agent, say, look, hey, if you get to 12 transactions and you recruit one agent into the office, I'll bump you from 70-30 to 75-25. So you have each one of your agents reach another one. So it's a each one reach one. That's what I've called it in the past, but you can do kind of a really like a 90-day incentive too. Like, hey, in the next 90 days, all the agents in the office, if you reach one and you set up an appointment with me, they don't actually have to come on board. But if you set up an appointment where I at least give them a shot, maybe we all go out to dinner. Dinner's on me, or we all go out and do some cool event. We'll all go bowling, all this kind of stuff. I'll pay for everything. All you have to do is set up an appointment. Even if it's by Zoom, I'm just now at least talking to the person and I can be that maybe that person they can, look to down the road if they want to change brokerages. That's another way of using it. Using events to meet agents. If they're doing open houses, they're doing the local realtor association meetings, they're doing all kind of different, what do you call it, committees at the local real estate, a realtor association, different commercial associations, investor associations, all these events, you can meet other agents and build rapport with them outside of the office so they feel like they connect with you in a different way. This is one of the ways you can do that. Marketing do's and don'ts goes back to building a story brand. If you keep positioning yourself as the hero, the agent that's wanting to come on board with you can't be the hero because they're the hero in your story. If you're rebuilding a story brand, you'll do recruiting much better than everybody else. If you're always touting how great you are and how much success you have, and your brokerage did this, and you're awesome, all that kind of stuff, it really kind of comes off very tacky and distasteful and unrespectful for other brokerages. And what you're doing is you're providing a story that they can't see themselves in. You need to create a story that they see themselves in, and you are the guide in that story. They are the hero. That's kind of the marketing do's and don'ts. But when you read that book, you'll understand that one really in depth. Adding the right amount of pressure to attract, not repel. You can kind of be a stalker too. You got to give them some breathing room. And in doing so, why not just ask them when you meet with them or call them over the phone? Hey, look, I want to get back with you. Should I follow up with you in a week, a month, 6 months? Do you hate people following up with you? Do you want somebody to send you some resources once a week? Ask them. Don't guess what the pressure should be. Ask them what the pressure should be. And they'll probably give you more than what they're comfortable with. But now they've already told you what they're wanting. So now you're able to give it to them. So that's the way to add pressure. Just ask them what you're wanting to do, what you're wanting to receive from me. Hey, if you're ever getting a tight, just pinch with your broker or a certain deal and you can't get in touch with your broker, you can always contact me. Doesn't matter what it is. I'll be really general. I'm not going to try to recruit you. I just want to make sure that, a lot of agents in our market have me as a resource if they can't get in touch with their broker. That's a really kind of Switzerland way of putting yourself out there, that they see you as a way of looking at you as a resource, not someone who's trying to pitch them, sell them, to just try to get them on board so you can make them money. If they feel like that's what it's all about, then they won't come on board, because again, you're playing the hero, not playing the guide, and trying to add value. And then again, at the end, your reputation is what precedes you in the marketplace. If you're doing transactions in the wrong way, every time you've done a transaction with somebody, they're talking about it in their brokerage. So everybody in that brokerage will not come on board with you because of the way you handled them. So you have to be professional in every transaction you do. And then also when something comes up with your brokerage and another brokerage, make sure that agent is taken care of. And then you almost like you want to give them, especially when the agent did something wrong, the broker on the other side knows it. You want to give them a pass. You want to give them an easy way out. You want to give them a back door. You want to be able to give them the ability to save face. So when you do that, they appreciate it. They feel like, wow, they could have really been an ass. They had every right to be an ass, but they gave us a pass. They were more merciful when it comes to this. They didn't turn us into the real estate commission. They didn't do this. They didn't do all that. And they made it really a very pleasant experience when it didn't have to be. That's the reputation you want to put out. Now, is there going to be a handful, a dozen that are going to be narcissists and morons and total asses? Yeah, you got to treat them like that, because everybody is treating them like that. But when you don't have someone that's constantly providing that pattern of narcissism, then you have to almost give them grace. And when you do that, it will actually, you'll find other brokers and other brokerages talking about you to their agents about a certain situation, and this is how you need to handle it. But they'll talk good about you in their brokerage, which is what you want. If something happens in that brokerage and somebody leaves, at least, well, they know what they went. If they went to that brokerage, I understand why. It's a really good broker, and you're going to be really successful there, or you'll be happy there. So that's some of the things that we talk about as far as recruiting best practices. Anybody have any questions or comments when it comes to recruiting? Or maybe you've been recruited the right way and the wrong way. Maybe that's some of the comments or feedback maybe talk about. No? Well, what's kind of funny is I've only been recruited once, and at the time I didn't even know I was being recruited. And it was by he's passed now, he passed away, but it was Kenny Smith of a local franchise here locally. And I was working with a builder, and he said, I want you to come by my office one day. I want to talk about you, talk to you about a few things. I think you've got a lot of promise in this industry, and it was really when I was maybe 7, 8, 9 years in the business. And that was the only time anyone has ever tried to recruit me, which I think is funny. And I don't really understand why. I think a lot of people are being recruited all the time. I just haven't be one of those. I don't know really why. Maybe I'm intimidating, or maybe just people think I'm unrecruitable. I don't know.
I got a call yesterday actually from EXP, and I was kind of shocked. I was like, huh, okay, thank you, but no thank you.
Well, and two, I will say one of those things is because like if you're not being recruited, it's like, well, what's wrong with me? How come everybody else is being recruited but not me? So it's kind of like one of those ego pats on the back. If you're being recruited every few months, every few weeks, whatever, somebody says, hey, let's go have lunch, or have you ever thought about this brokerage? It's a nice to have. It's one of those things where at least you feel like you're being valued or sought after, regardless if you want to leave or not. I mean, if anybody wants to recruit from eAgent or release the office that I belong to, good luck, because like you've got your work cut out, because we're trying to provide as much value as possible to each individual. And it's not a blanket value. You try to get with them individually and create specialized value for them in their business. But I always welcome anybody try to recruit any of our agents, because like if they do, they're just going to come tell me all the cool stuff they're doing in their office. I'm like, hey, maybe we can do something in our office. I love that. So I welcome it all. And if you want to recruit somebody else's office, that's great. Now, I will say this. When you are a franchisee, you can't recruit another franchisee in another franchise. It's against the law. It's illegal. It's a federal crime. So you can't do that. Let's say if I'm in an eAgent franchise, I'm a franchisee. I can't recruit. I can recruit the agents in that office. I can't recruit or try to sell a franchise to another franchisee that's already under a franchise agreement. Now, with that said, if they reach out to you, if they reach out to me, that's different. Gloves are off. Now I have proof that they reached out to me. I'm not soliciting them. And now I can tell them anything, everything. Everything's good to go. But just want to throw that out to you as well. Once you're a franchisee, you kind of hands off when it comes to other franchisees. Doesn't have to be anything in their office, any MLM, any big brokerage, EXP, real broker, all that kind of stuff. Those are not franchises. Those are a brokerage, and those are up for grabs like anybody else. Anybody else have any questions or comments? All right. And final thoughts. I like this quote from Jim Rohn. Formal education will make you a living. Self-education will make you a fortune. This is one of the things or reasons why we keep hitting over and over and over how to, or why you should be learning more and constantly learning from the books that we're providing and trying to get you caught up to speed, because it's going to help you be a better agent. It's going to help you be a better broker. It's going to help you to be a better regional. It's going to help you be a better leader in the community with everybody you come in contact with, especially with other brokerages and other franchisees within eAgent. So does anybody have any final thoughts on the agent to broker plan? Any comments, questions, anything like that, or just overall viewpoint of the value we provide here at eAgent? All right, I must have done pretty well. All right, so it's, well, I guess we've been over 2 hours. It's 2 hours and 13 minutes. I didn't know that was going to be pretty close, but that's the general overview of all the agent to broker classes. It's just an intro to the plan itself. It's a general highlights or overview for all the other classes. We'll have additional classes too. But this is different than franchise training. The agent to broker classes are to get you geared up to run and operate a brokerage and what that looks like if you want to then make that decision. Then once you make that decision, there is another whole layer set of classes that you go through franchise training. That's a different ballgame altogether, which is kind of like so if you look at agent to broker is like a 101 when you look at a college level, and then like the franchise training is like a 202 kind of a level. So that's it. I just want to make sure everybody had a good general idea and overview of the agent to broker plan. If you see A2B, it stands for agent to broker plan. And that's what we're all about, trying to create more opportunities for agents who want to go out on their own, have the ability to, and learn how to do and run and operate a brokerage before they actually have to. And then once they're out on their own, they're able to hit the ground running, and they already kind of get an idea and and what they need to do, support locally, support, you know, through technology, integrations, all that kind of stuff. So with that, I'll leave it at the end of here. If anybody wants to put any comments and questions in the chat, they can do so. But we'll call it a day, and hopefully everybody will have a great day, and appreciate you guys watching the video to the end. Thank you.
Thank you. Great